Welcome to The Fight on Matrix Midwest with Randy Carricker.
Hi kids, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us. Coming up, we have our all-time best players for the Cardinals and St. Louis Browns/Orioles. We have the biggest movers on Mizzou's roster with training camp complete, and our Tamar Sher was at Bellerive for the entire BMW Championship. She'll join us to talk about that coming up. But first, it's time for your quick hits, and they are sponsored by St. Luke's. And the Redbirds went from September 24th of 2024, when Sonny Gray went on the IL with forearm tightness, to Friday, when they put Andre Palante on the IL with forearm tightness without placing a starting pitcher on the IL. That's an amazing run of health and success, nearly 2 full years. But we've talked a lot about playing for an entire 6-month season for all of these youngsters and how hard it is. And we're reaching the point now in a season where contenders surge and pretenders have a tendency to fade. We saw it over the weekend with the sweep by Philly and their 2-out rally for a 6-4 win in the finale. It's not a bad thing for a young team to suffer like that. It's part of the growth process of becoming a winning major league player, and it doesn't happen for everyone. But when you throw 2,200 pitches like Palante has, and do it in stressful situations as much as he has this year, it's going to take its toll. We should also mention, and I'm one who calls for building pitchers up, that Palante had thrown 6 innings or more in 4 of his last 5 starts, even though he only got to 100 pitches once in that stretch. For today's pitcher, 6 innings is a lot of time. It's something they just aren't built up for. The day after placing Palante on the IL, by the way, the Cardinals put Hunter Dobbins on the IL too. One of the risks you take when you trade a guy like Dustin May, which was the right move for the Cardinals, is that if a couple of pitchers get hurt, you might wind up with someone in the rotation that you don't necessarily want in the rotation. And that's where the Cardinals are headed now with the pitchers that they have on the shelf. Again, the intrigue for me is not that the Cardinals lost the game on Sunday, it's how they rebound once they take on the Baltimore Orioles. Ultimately, these guys will be tougher, stronger, better for that loss. The BMW Championship was a huge success at Bellerive over the weekend. Rory McIlroy made some massive missteps down the stretch, and second and third round leader Wyndham Clark didn't make mistakes in winning his 3rd tournament of the year. World number 1 Scottie Scheffler didn't have his best tournament, but as it turns out, there's a good reason that he wasn't able to catch up to the likes of Wyndham Clark and Rory McIlroy.
No, I got, the hand-foot mouth, so you get your blisters on your hands and in your throat and on your feet. So, to start the week, it was pretty painful to grip the club, but if I was smarter, maybe would have pulled out. But I was playing so good, I felt like if I could knock it out quickly and just get through the first couple rounds, I'd still have a chance. But I think that's part of my stubbornness, probably, and that's probably a strength of mine and a weakness at times. Like I've never been one to ever pull out of a tournament, especially in the middle of it. That's really frustrating for me, and so I definitely didn't want to do that going into this week, even though it was suggested. But like I said, I'm proud of how I fought. I feel like I'm starting to heal up. My throat is still bugging me pretty good, but my hands feel normal today. I actually almost caught myself shaking hands with Cam on 18, and I would have felt really bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I almost forgot. So that's good news. Starting to feel better. And hopefully the throat will clear up the next couple of days, and I'll be back to normal.
Walking felt fine?
Yeah, walking's fine. Once you get out on the course, you get the adrenaline and everything, I start to feel better. But the blisters on the hands was probably the most challenging. Just it was painful to grip the club to start the week, and I was prioritizing grass, so I wasn't able to work out the way I want to and practice the way I want to, and even warm up for rounds the way I want to. I really just did my best to try and battle, and like I said, it maybe was a poor decision plan, but I've never been one to try and quit.
In talking to a couple of people that have had hand, foot, and mouth disease, for him to finish 7 under over 4 days, for him to complete 4 days, is pretty unbelievable. And I don't think there's any doubt that a healed-up Scottie Scheffler will still be the favorite next weekend in Atlanta. And now, knowing what he did when he really shouldn't have even been on the course, he'll be a prohibitive favorite in Atlanta. The University of Missouri football team held their final scrimmage of training camp on Saturday. Head coach Eli Drinkwitz revealed that All-America running back Ahmad Hardy won't be recovered enough from his gunshot wound in the spring to be ready for the opener. In fact, there's still no definitive timeline. Well, Hardy won't be there. Who stepped up during training camp?
Yeah, Donovan Alubade is a guy that we expected to make a jump and continues to impress as a receiver who can play every down and add more to his game than just back shoulders. We wanted to see Austin Simmons make a jump, from the spring and understanding of the offense and spreading the ball around. I think tonight was his best scrimmage opportunity that he's had, and I thought he played really well. I think about Whit Hafer and Jack Lang, both those guys at the tackle positions have done an excellent job. And I kind of already highlighted the defensive guys, but Darius Smith and Hopkins have just really been really good at the edge position for us, and the corners have done a really good job.
I want to touch on the trenches. A couple of things. Number one, there is a level of continuity on the Mizzou offensive line that will come into play and be a big deal, I think, down the stretch. When you have a guy like Dominic Giudice, who's going to be at center this year, when you have Caden Green, your left tackle, those are two really good offensive linemen that'll make a difference. And then on the other side, in the trenches, Coach brought up the name of Darius Smith, who was brought in from Georgia to be a pass rusher and then was kind of thought of as not a pass rusher when a fellow Georgia player, Damon Wilson, came. Well, now, according to Drinkwitz, Darius Smith has really stepped up as a pass rushing defensive end in the Mizzou defense. And I'll be interested to see if he can do what Drinkwitz says he can, because in my opinion, the biggest difficulty Mizzou will have is getting after the quarterback. They lost so much pass rush from the 2025 team. It'll be imperative for the 2026 team to be able to get after the quarterback. All right, let's talk pro football. Nielsen just released the first ever NFL Fandom Index, which ranks how avid NFL fans are in each team market based on 8 key metrics. Those metrics are apparel purchases, event attendance, linear TV viewership, streaming, radio listening, betting intent, and social media following. Los Angeles fans are ranked 29th, even though the Rams have been awesome for 9 years. You kind of get New York being 30th. The Jets and Giants have the 2 worst records in the league over the last 11 years, but not LA. There's no excuse for them not to passionately support their team that had Aaron Donald, that has a guy like Puka Nacua, that has won a Super Bowl, that has Matthew Stafford, that has a charismatic coach. I find it unbelievable that in all of these metrics that Los Angeles is, well, I shouldn't say I find it unbelievable, because I'm not surprised that they don't really support their NFL team. By the way, note that at the top of that list, the top 11 are from mostly smaller markets, non-Sunbelt cities: Buffalo, Kansas City, Green Bay, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Detroit, New Orleans, Cleveland. Look at the top of that list, Minneapolis. There is something to be said for having teams in cities where potential fans are actually from that city and they root for the city as much as the franchise. That's why places like Atlanta and Dallas and Phoenix and LA are lagging in this department, because there just isn't as much passion for the teams in those cities as there are when people actually root for their city. You have a ton of Bears fans in LA. You have a ton of Eagles fans in LA. I'm sure you have a ton of Patriots fans in LA. And those people are going to SoFi, and not to get in fights like Rams fans from LA do. They're going to SoFi to watch the opponent. It is fun to see pretty much every week that there's a fight at SoFi Stadium among Rams fans. I do enjoy that part of it. They're passionate about the fights, just not very passionate about the team. According to Tom Bogert of The Athletic, the San Jose Earthquakes have agreed to a deal to acquire Edward Leuven from St. Louis City SC. St. Louis will receive $425,000 in general allotment money, plus another $500,000 in add-ons. According to The Athletic, Leuven will be a designated player for San Jose for the rest of the season and save allocation money and salary cap space, but can be bought down, lesser salary, in the future. The 29-year-old midfielder provides a boost to San Jose. They've been among the best in the league, but they're winless in 6 matches since the return from the World Cup break. City hasn't lost in their last 12, and Coach Jan Dume hasn't had Leuven for most of his tenure. But in watching City for their first few years, Leuven was their best all-around player to me. I'll be interested to see how Corey Ray and Dume make City better with Leuven not on their team. I'm not saying it can't be done, because they've been a pretty bad team the last couple of years, but he's been a pretty good player for them. But right now, give them the benefit of the doubt, because they seem to know what they're doing. They've played pretty much without him, and they're in the midst of a 12-game unbeaten string. City SC has a couple of games left against top teams, and right now they're tied for the 4th playoff spot in the West. Who would have ever thought that they would go on a 12-game unbeaten string and be as high in the standings as they are? Seems to me that it would be easier if you were trying to advance to the playoffs and then advance in the playoffs. If you had a guy like Edward Leuven, I want to see who the replacement is that's better than he is. Those are your quick hits, and they are brought to you by our friends at St. Luke's. And they have top doctors in everything from heart health to orthopedics and more. Visit stlukes-stl.com today. Later in the show, we're going to bring you our daily wager, but coming up next, we're going to look back at the BMW Championship here in St. Louis with Tamar Sher of Matrix Midwest and First Alert 4. She is next in the fight. The city of St. Louis and Bellerive Country Club still enjoying the afterglow of the wonderful BMW Championship that was played at Bellerive over the weekend, and it was a resounding success. And Tamar Sher of Matrix Midwest, of course, a member of the show here and a First Alert 4, joins us. She was out there for the entire tournament, and we're going to reminisce a little bit about what happened over the course of the weekend. Tamar, it's great to see you. How you doing?
It's great to see you again. We were able to hang out at the final round, Randy, which was so fun to be able to experience that. But as I mentioned to you before this even began, I didn't get to be here for 2018 when Bellerive was able to show out on a championship level stage, and to be able to be here for the BMW Championship in my hometown of St. Louis, to see what St. Louis was able to do to show out in the way that they did, be as respectful as they were, and set records starting on Thursday. That was such a cool experience for me to see. And I told you this, but man, I'm sad it's over. A long week, but I'm so bummed that it's come to a close.
And Tamar, you were having so much fun out there, and I didn't realize that you hadn't done 2018. So what was the vibe like for you as someone who hadn't been to one of those? What are you thinking as you're walking among the fans, and what was the vibe of those fans like for Tamar Sher?
Yeah, and my perspective was a little bit different because I'm the person able to be in the ropes and able to get a lot of video and be up close and personal, as so many of the fans were. That's what's unique about golf, is you can be up close and personal with the golfers. They can hear what you're saying. You guys are breathing the same air. And that's what's such a unique experience with just a golf tournament in general. This one here in St. Louis was super special. Like I mentioned, you set records on Thursday with 28,000 people, sold out crowds on Saturday and Sunday for the final two rounds. I mean, it was just such an incredible experience to be able to see how St. Louis embraced the best golfers in the world, and then how the best golfers in the world embrace St. Louis. And we're so proud and excited to feel the energy from this St. Louis crowd. It went both ways, and it really was. It was a clean, exciting tournament, and I think St. Louis really set itself up well to say, hey, we are ready for championships like this. You saw it in 2018, you saw it again in 2026.
And Tiger really went out of his way in 2018 to compliment St. Louis. And you just don't see that all the time. But it seemed like this year, again, the players really enjoyed it. And you had a chance to be in some of those press conferences. What sort of feedback did you get and see from the players?
Totally. Hearing from Rory, from Scotty, from Wyndham Clark, the BMW Championship winner, I think they put it best that there was a level of respect with the St. Louis fans that was so exciting for them to experience. They said it elevated what they were doing. And this is why the game is so special, because of the fans, because of the people that come out to support these golfers. Wyndham Clark actually is a Cardinals fan. Mm-hmm. It goes back to his family. He was able to say that after everything was complete. I wish I knew that a couple of days ago, but it is really cool to experience that all of these guys, the top 50 golfers in the entire world, saying, no, we knew and have heard that St. Louis was a great sports town, but now to experience it in the level of their sport and the golf atmosphere, to see that that translated. It's not just a baseball or hockey town. It's certainly a golf town as well, and St. Louis really showed up. It was amazing to see, and the crowds just elevated every single day.
And Tamar, I thought in Wyndham Clark's case in particular, because last year after the U.S. Open, he destroyed the locker room at Oakmont. And this year at the U.S. Open, he's taking all kinds of grief. People actually got thrown out of Bethpage Black because they were taunting Wyndham Clark so mercilessly. So when Rory made a mess of 17, and we knew that Wyndham Clark was going to win, I thought it was really cool the way that St. Louis reacted to him, especially based on the way that New York had reacted to him.
Yeah, and he mentioned that as well. He said, I understand that I'm playing with a fan favorite in Rory McIlroy. He's like, there's no doubt about that. I'm going to acknowledge that. But he loved the respect that St. Louis showed him to come out, and the level of golf knowledge that is around this city, I think, was very apparent. And being able to shift gears, I know, of course, people were following Scottie Scheffler even after he didn't have the best tournament run. He didn't have a great final round, and still people were following him, people following Rory. But then the way that St. Louis embraced Wyndham Clark after his win, on way to his win, especially in those back-to-back-to-back birdies at the end, I think it was hard to argue good golf, good putting, and they definitely really wrapped their arms around Wyndham. Say, I was waiting for that final pair on 18 when Rory did what he did on 17. So I got a little different perspective. I was having to check and see because with my camera, but it was a unique experience to see that final pair come in and just to kind of know and feel like the sigh of relief after that. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah. And I don't know that Scheffler's crowds were as big as Tiger's crowds in 2018, but Scottie is a big star, and that was made very apparent by the crowds and the size of the crowds and the enthusiasm of the crowds that were following Scottie around, even when we knew he wasn't going to win the tournament.
Oh man, and then it comes out after the fact that he wasn't feeling well this entire tournament as well, and it was hard to grip on day one. So that just shows, I mean, he said stubbornness. I say competitive energy. That was such a cool thing for St. Louis to witness, to see. But no, those crowds were following him all the way through to the very last hole. And it just shows how some of these guys have that fan base around them. And St. Louis just wanted to see the #1 golfer in the world. And sometimes, like this BMW Championship, I know Rory was saying Bellerive really plays to his strengths. Scottie didn't experience that this time around for him in particular, but it was neat to see. And still, those people kept following him around and wanted to cheer him on all the way through.
Yeah, and I thought with Rory on 17, so for those that weren't watching or weren't aware of what happened, he hits his drive into the rough on the left side. Everybody's trying to stay away from the right side, where Tiger kind of lost the tournament in 2018. So he's in the rough on the left side, second shot into the sand, third shot out of the sand into more sand, fourth shot, and this is on a par 5, zooms past the hole, misses the long putt, and then winds up with a bogey. And that kind of took the wind out of my sails, because I was expecting Rory to be right there and at least be able to mount a challenge. You saw what happened. It really was remarkable for a great golfer to suffer the same things that I suffer on a regular basis.
Yeah, Ozzie Smith said it on the first day. He's like, these golfers make it look easy. These golfers are also human as well. And I know I saw a bunch of missed putts throughout the entire day. I was setting up my camera and I was seeing them like, oh, so they are real. And yet still, they do make things look so easy. And I know I cannot be on their level. But yeah, so I think take the wind out of your sails is the right term when talking about what happened with Rory. But at the same time, it was cool to see him come back, Wyndham Clark being 5 shots up, seeing Rory being able to get there and get that momentum after what we saw from him in Memphis. So yes, it was a bit lackluster in that final hole. Like, okay, he's kind of lost it now, but that was a neat way to say, okay, the back 9, he could stay competitive. You do have this neck and neck race. You do have the crowds. I think the best scene I was able to see throughout the entire week was you see the final pair come up on 18 and they're walking with this massive crowd behind them. That gave me total chills, being able to see the support around Wyndham Clark, around Rory McIlroy, just to see those final two putts, really. So it was a unique experience, but yes, I think took the wind out of our sails a bit when Rory did what he did on 17.
Obviously, I went to the merchandise tent, and I don't know if you got in there, but it's like walking into like a Golf Galaxy or a PGA Tour Superstore. It was that big with all kinds of apparel and golf items and whatever you wanted. It was pretty cool. Did you get a chance to get into the merchandise tent, Tamar?
I was smart and I went before the weekend crowds because what I heard on Sunday is that everything was sold out. That's how many people were showing up. So I was able to get my dad some merch, myself some merch. So we were able to get in there. But oh my goodness, what Bellerive did, my jaw was on the ground the entire time. It was unbelievable the way in which that place transformed into hosting a championship. The merch tent was unbelievable. Everything was amazing, but I had to make sure I had the Bellerive crest along with my BMW championship logo because you have to make it St. Louis and special. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and another part of St. Louis, and I don't know because I don't go to golf tournaments elsewhere, but the volunteers are unfailingly polite, they're smiling, they're helpful. The staff and members at Bellerive obviously have to sacrifice because they give up their golf course for a pretty substantial amount of time. And you got a chance to be around them too. I really thought that the people involved with staging the tournament were amazing.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And people were thanking me at the end of the day for the coverage. No, thank you for being able to do what you do, for lending the community your course in this way. And man, it takes a lot to go into this tournament. So when you talk about this being something done every so often, 2018, 26, and the President's Cup coming to St. Louis in 2030, but I just saw an overwhelming group of support banding around St. Louis. And that starts with the volunteers, it starts with the members, it starts with everyone, the Western Golf Association, and learning the behind the scenes of what happens, how many people you come into the clubhouse, and it is massive and filled with people who are doing different jobs, making everything work. I mean, even the camera crew following around at each hole and getting the perfect shot for fans at home to see as well. But really, it was an unbelievable showing. Everyone couldn't have been nicer and more wonderful. Everyone was smiling. I just would walk around smiling, holding my camera. I'm like, wait, does it get any better than this? Being out, and it was a beautiful weekend, Randy, too, wasn't it?
Oh, it's unreal that we've had 3 major events in August. We had the 92 PGA, the 18 PGA, and now this, all in August and all with exquisite weather. Whatever higher being is out there smiles on St. Louis when we have big golf events. It was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. And I know there was a little bit of rain and we were worried about how things would fare coming into the weekend, but whoa. Thank you to whoever said we need some good weather this weekend, because it really was an unbelievable experience. And
we say thank you to Steve Templeton, right? I mean, that's the way we go.
There we go. Thank you, Steve Templeton. Really appreciate your work.
Yeah. Hey, I said earlier on the show that I'd rather have a big event like this every 6 or 8 years. Like you mentioned, President's Cup coming up in 4 years at Bellerive. I think I'd rather do that than have an annual event, because I think the novelty would wear off if you have it every year. And not that it would be a bad thing, but I love the intensity and the size of having a big event every once in a while.
And you think of what it takes to transform a place like Bellerive into hosting an event like that. Yeah, I would say the novelty of being able to come in every couple of years and have something big like this to get St. Louis excited brings energy to it, adds the novelty, as you say. And that's what I thought was so unique and special about this event. We were waiting for this for so long, and then you're seeing everything come into itself and seeing everything being built, because you have to think the grandstands as well, like all of the things that goes into that's not typically at Bellerive. It takes human manpower, it takes people. So to be able to appreciate and say, okay, that was wonderful, let's take a big deep breath, for another 4 years and then have another event that is of the same championship caliber that does garner excitement around fans. I think, Randy, you're absolutely right. That's the way to go.
And finally, you don't get to take a huge breath, but at Matrix Midwest, over the last several years, since this station started in August of 24, you and the staff with Jacob and Grace have done a fabulous job covering Mizzou football with the pregame show and the postgame shows. Well, as we transition into being an ABC affiliate, now we've got the horsepower of leading into SEC football Saturday. So your next thing, I would think, in terms of big projects, is going to be the Mizzou football pregame show. Are you looking forward to that?
You got that right. I actually said as soon as this week was over, I had some friends texting, so how was the week? What's going on? And I go, week was incredible. I'm ready for football. I'm so now in football mode, and you're starting to feel it. You're getting closer and closer to that September, October feeling. And yeah, no, I'm really thrilled that we're covering another season of Mizzou football, being able to go every single week, traveling with the team, all the things that we're able to do and we have been able to do for the past couple of years since I've been working here. It's been really special to be on the ground, being able to understand head coach Eli Drinkwitz and what he's wanting to do with his program, and we're back at it for another year. But yeah, I'm ready to get into football.
Well, your work is spectacular. That's why you are the Missouri Sportscaster of the Year, and I always love having you on the show. Thanks so much for the time, Tamar.
Randy, anytime. You're so wonderful. We'll hang out soon.
Absolutely. Take care. That is the great Tamar Sher joining us here in The Fight. And of course, you can see her regularly on First Alert 4 with the Sportscast. And we will have Mizzou pregame every Saturday before the SEC game right here on Matrix Midwest. Coming up, the Cardinals are playing the Orioles, who used to be the St. Louis Browns, the best players to play for both franchises. Next in the list here in The Fight. It's time for the list. And from the start of Major League Baseball in 1876 until 1953, St. Louis had a National League team, the Cardinals, and an American League team, the Browns, who moved to Baltimore and became the Orioles in 1954. The Browns and Cardinals did play each other in the 1944 World Series, but they also shared some great players, the best that played for both franchises, now in the list. And we're going to start with number 6. And this one is number 6, not because of the quality of the players, but because of the technicality of the player playing for the Cardinals and the Browns. Hall of Fame pitcher Dizzy Dean is tied to both franchises, reaching his prime as an ace of the Cardinals in the 1930s before later pulling off a famous one-game pitching stunt for the Browns in 1947. Dean cemented his legacy as a dominant, flamboyant superstar with the Gas House Gang and remains the last National League pitcher to win 30 games in a single season when he went 30-7 for the 1934 World Champion Cardinals. He won 2 games in that 1934 World Series along his brother Paul Daffy Dean, who won the other 2. Dizzy was named the National League MVP in 1934 and finished as the runner-up in both 35 and 36. But a broken toe during the 1937 All-Star Game forced Dizzy to alter his mechanics, causing a career-altering arm injury. Following a brief stint with the Cubs, Dizzy retired due to arm pain and entered the radio booth in 1941, calling home games for both the Cardinals and the Browns. By 1947, he was broadcasting exclusively for a struggling Browns team that went 59-95. Here's the technicality part. Frustrated by the terrible pitching staff, Dean claimed live on the air, "Doggone it, I swear I could do better than a lot of those guys pitching these days." And to capitalize on the hype, the Browns signed the 37-year-old broadcaster to a one-game contract for the final day of the 1947 season. And on September 28, 1947, 6 years after his last major league pitch, Dean started against the White Sox and tossed 4 scoreless innings, allowing only 3 hits and 1 walk. He also singled in his only at-bat before stepping back into retirement. So there's the technicality. He was a Cardinal and a Brown, but he was only a Brown really for a day. All right, number 5, our friend Andy Van Slyke. He played 4 seasons for the Cardinals, 1983 to 1986, reaching the 1985 World Series, and he split his final major league season between the Orioles and the Philadelphia Phillies in 1995. With the Cardinals between 1983 and 1986, he was drafted in the first round in 1979 and made his debut in June 1983 as a replacement on the roster when Keith Hernandez got traded. He helped the Cardinals win the 1985 National League pennant and, of course, was traded to the Pirates in April of 1987 for catcher Tony Pena. In Baltimore in 1995, he signed right before the season. He played in 36 games for the Orioles before being traded to Philadelphia in August of 1995 to finish his 13-year big league career. He actually came to camp with the Cardinals in 1996, but got injured and didn't make the team. And I think Andy still might be a little bit bitter about that. He was a great Cardinal, and he was a great Pirate most of all, but he also played for the Browns/Orioles. So Andy Van Slyke is number 5 on our list. Number 4 is former Orioles and Cardinals catcher Matt Wieters. He played for the O's from 2009 to 2016 and the Cardinals from 2019 to 2020 over his 12-season career. He was drafted 5th overall by Baltimore out of Georgia Tech, and Wieters rose to prominence as a franchise cornerstone before concluding his career as a veteran backup right here in St. Louis. In Baltimore, he spent 8 seasons as the primary starting catcher for the O's, establishing himself as one of the best switch hitting catchers in baseball. He earned all 4 of his MLB All-Star selections in 2011, 2012, 2014, and 2016, and 2 Gold Glove Awards in 11 and 12 while in Baltimore. Wieters hit 117 of his 146 career homers with the O's, including 3 consecutive 20-plus home run seasons from 2011 to 2013. Signed with the Cardinals to serve as the backup to future Hall of Famer Yadier Molina in 2019, and was able to step in seamlessly. You'll remember this during Molina's injury stint in 2011, appearing in 67 games and hitting 11 home runs to help the Cardinals capture the NL Central Division title. That was actually 2019 that he filled in for Yadi. And Wieters played his final major league season in the COVID season of 2020 and made his last appearance on September 25th before entering free agency and then transitioned into coaching. So Matt Wieters is number 4. All right, number 3 is Cardinal Hall of Famer Max Lanier, the father of Hal Lanier, who was a standout Major League Baseball pitcher, Max was, whose career tied deeply into St. Louis baseball history through both the Cardinals and the Browns. Lanier spent 12 of his 14 Major League seasons with the Cardinals, where he won 2 World Series championships in 1942 and 1944, and he earned 2 All-Star selections. In a poetic twist, Max Lanier was the winning pitcher of the deciding Game 6 in the 1944 World Series, ironically and historically dubbed the Trolley Car Series, where the Cardinals defeated their hometown rivals, the Browns. A decade later, after a stint with the Giants and a controversial jump to the Mexican League, Max Lanier actually finished his MLB career playing for the Browns in 1953, appearing in 10 games before the franchise relocated to Baltimore. In recognition of his legacy, he was inducted into the Cardinals Hall of Fame. All right, number 2 on our list of the best that played for the Cardinals and the Browns/Orioles, Sonny Jim Bottomley. He spent his iconic 16-year Major League Baseball career bookended by the 2 historic franchises here in St. Louis, the Cardinals from 1922 to 1932, and the Browns from 1936 through 1937. Nicknamed Sonny Jim for his cheerful disposition, the Hall of Fame first baseman became a legendary figure in St. Louis baseball history. He arose from the Cardinals' early farm system, started by Branch Rickey, to become the focal point of their offense during the 1920s. He was named the 1928 National League Most Valuable Player after hitting .325 and leading the league in homers with 31, runs batted in with 136, and triples with 20. Bottomley helped guide the Cardinals to 4 National League pennants and 2 World Series championships in 1926 and 1931. On September 16th of 1924, Bottomley went 6 for 6 and set an MLB single-game record with 12 runs batted in against the Brooklyn Robins, a record that went unmatched for 69 years until fellow Cardinal Mark Whitten tied it against the Reds with his 4-homer game in 1993. Following a 3-year stint with the Cincinnati Reds, Bottomley returned to join the Browns here in St. Louis, and during his first season with the Browns in 1936, he set an MLB record for the most unassisted double plays by a first baseman in a single season with 8. In July of 1937, Bottomley was named player manager for the Browns, piloting the club for the final 78 games of the season before hanging up his cleats with a .310 career batting average. Bottomley's connection to the city extended past his playing days. In 1939, he served as a radio broadcaster for both the Cardinals and the Browns. He passed away here in St. Louis in 1959, was posthumously inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1974, and was part of the inaugural class of the Cardinals Hall of Fame in 2014. All right, number one, and if you're an old school person who follows St. Louis baseball, you'll know the name. It's Rogers Hornsby, a Hall of Famer who uniquely serves as a foundational icon for both major league teams here in St. Louis, the Cardinals and the Browns. He's one of the greatest right-handed hitters in the history of baseball with a .358 lifetime batting average and 2 Triple Crowns. Hornsby spent the core of his career with the Cardinals, establishing himself as a dominant powerhouse by batting over 403 separate times, including a modern National League record of .424 in 1924. Hornsby took over as player manager in 1925 and led the Cardinals to their first ever World Series championship in 1926, famously tagging out Babe Ruth, who was trying to steal second, to end Game 7. Following a contract impasse and trades across other MLB teams, Hornsby returned to St. Louis to represent the Browns. He joined the Browns in 1933, serving as player manager until 1937, and then gathered his final major league hits and his final career home run while wearing a Browns uniform. One of the all-time greats, one of the iconic Hall of Famers who played for both the Cardinals and the Browns/Orioles. The name is Rogers Hornsby. Now, there's a lot of other guys that have done it that haven't been as iconic. Ty Wigginton, Will Clark had a nice run here. Chris Richard had a nice run here. But those are the 6 best to ever play for the Cardinals and Orioles/Browns. And that is today's list. Coming up as we roll on here in the fight, we've got today's Daily Wager for you. Stick around. And I want you to know what's going on with my friends at St. Luke's, because if you have any problems at all with your heart, and that might not be problems that you know about, if you have a pain in your chest, if you have a radiating sensation into your shoulder, you need to find out what is ailing you. And the best place in St. Louis to go is one of the top 5 heart hospitals in America, St. Luke's. They have a fantastic affiliation with the Cleveland Heart Clinic, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, St. Luke's will do great work for you. If you go in and say, hey, I've got a problem that I need to have looked at, they will do the best job of diagnosis. If it requires a stress test, you'll get a stress test, which I had. And if surgery is required, they do a fantastic job with a stent. You'll be out of the hospital within 48 hours. And if you need bypass, they do the best in town at making sure that your heart is repaired to its greatest extent. And then the rehab people at St. Luke's are absolutely amazing. They'll do great work for you, and they'll get you feeling normal again, and they'll get you back out and doing the things that you used to do in no time at all. It really is a great St. Louis institution. It really is the best St. Louis cardiac hospital. It is St. Luke's, where they pour their hearts into making sure that yours is healthy. Give St. Luke's a call, 314-205-6801, or find them on the web at stlukes-stl.com. All right, time for the Daily Wager, and we did not do well on betting on Scotty Scheffler to win the BMW Championship. Fair bet, reasonable. I thought he was going to win, but he had the disease, so he didn't win. But that doesn't deter us. We're going to keep betting because that's what we do, because the wager is daily. So tonight we've got Chase Burns, who is sensational for the Reds. He's striking out a ton of hitters. He's winning left and right, and he's taking on a completely decimated San Francisco Giants team. They traded Elliot Ramos. They've lost Matt Chapman for the season. They can't hit anymore, is what I'm saying. About half their lineup camp is gone. Their opening day lineup, I think they only have one guy left. Willie Adames might be the only guy left for San Francisco. So they're really struggling offensively. They're going against Chase Burns. So what I'm going to do is look at Chase Burns to get 8+ strikeouts against San Francisco. I think he'll be able to do that at plus 185. So we'll give it a shot. And let's put $100 on it and see what we can earn out of Chase Burns getting those 8+ strikeouts. We're going to earn $285. So we put 100 down, we get 285 back. That's a profit of $185. And you know, what do we say? You can never go wrong making a profit, which we will do off of Chase Burns. All right, that is your daily wager. We've got more coming up for you, though. Next up, today's fun fact, story time with Uncle Randy, and this date in sports history. Stick around for that next. Time for today's fun fact, and London Tipton and Brenda Song don't have a lot in common, except when it comes to football. The actress, best known for her role as Tipton in the Disney Channel series, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, is a huge Rams fan. And over the weekend, she got to work with another Mickey Mouse organization when she did color for the LA Rams preseason telecast. Yeah, that's the best way to serve your fans and tell and show them who's having a good camp and is building a resume to make the team. Good move, Rams. Yeah, just get a Disney Channel actress to do color on your game. That's absolutely wonderful. That's Mickey Mouse organization. All right, time for story time with Uncle Randy, and Director Tyler is going to spin the wheel for a decade and a sport, and we'll come up with a little story for you. So let's get that wheel rolling, and we're going to go back to the 1970s, and we're going to do 1970s hockey. Okay, all right, so my very first game as a child was in 1972. I had turned 10 years old, and the Blues were playing the Broad Street Bullies. This was like November of 1972, and the Blues were playing the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Flyers became the Broad Street Bullies because the Blues, with Al Arbor and Noel Picard and Bob and Bart Plager, they were a gritty, tough, fighting bunch. And the Flyers decided, we're going to fight fire with fire. So they bring in Bobby Clark, they've got Bill Barber, they've got Ben Wilson, they've got Fred Sherrow as their head coach, and they decided we're going to be every bit as tough as the Blues. And that game, November of 1972 at the old arena, and if you are old enough to remember, you couldn't see the scoreboard from the seats at the old arena if you were in the upper level. So they had little televisions with the score actually right in front of you because you couldn't see what was then just a scoreboard. And it was an all-out brawl. It was so much fun to watch the Broad Street Bullies take on the St. Louis Blues, who were still tough at that time. And that year, the Blues had one of the all-time wackiest players ever. His name was Steve Durbano. And I think he got into a couple of fights that night against Philadelphia. And I think the Blues, if I'm not mistaken, even though the Flyers were good and they won the Stanley Cup that year, the Blues were able to hang with them and didn't lose badly. But I remember thinking, oh, this is cool because there were so many fights on the ice. We didn't have a ton of games televised at that time, back in that day, and it was really cool to watch. One other note, by the way, and you might see this with old arena pictures, the games used to start at 8 p.m. So the fans who got out of work at 5, they were pretty lubed up by the time game time rolled around at 8 o'clock. So the fans were as raucous as the teams were when the Blues played the Flyers. That was so much fun. And people say, oh, fighting shouldn't be a part of the game. Fighting should be a part of the game. It should be a big part of the game. And that's what I remember from my very first ever Blues game being at the arena back in November of 1972. All right, that is story time with Uncle Randy. Now it's time for this date in sports history. And on this date, in 2008, late August, I stayed up really late at night to watch the star-studded American men's basketball team led by LeBron James and Chris Paul and Kobe Bryant. They won the gold medal at the Beijing Olympics with a relatively narrow 118-107 victory over Spain. And of course, that in the first game of that tournament, that's when Kobe Bryant just plowed through Pau Gasol. Not in this game, but in this game, Dwayne Wade came off the bench, had 27 points, a couple of rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 steals. Kobe had 20 points and 3 rebounds with 6 assists. LeBron had 14 points and 6 rebounds with 3 assists and 3 steals. Carmelo, 13 points and 1 rebound. Chris Paul, 13 points and 3 rebounds. It was, next to the Dream Team in 1992, the greatest team ever assembled. And if you ever get the chance to watch one of several documentaries made about the Redeem Team, you have to watch it, because that team had so much personality. And one anecdote that I think is fabulous from this is that the players, the young players, and Kobe was kind of like the old head at this point in 2008. He got into the league in 2006, so 16. So he was 30 years old at this point. And he's playing with a bunch of guys that are in their early 20s. And they're working in Vegas. And the players, aside from Kobe, go out and party all night in Vegas. And they're getting back in at like 4:30 in the morning. And they're walking through past the gym and they're hearing, clang, clang, clang. And like literally 4:35 in the morning, they're coming in from partying and they see Kobe Bryant working out. And they say, oh, okay, this is serious now. And rather than keep partying like they had that night, the players decided we're going to adopt Kobe's philosophy. And so as a team, they would get together at 5 o'clock in the morning and start working out. And then they would have a healthy breakfast, they'd work out a little bit more, have lunch, go practice, and then be ready for their games. And Kobe Bryant was the difference maker for the Redeem Team. The games themselves were spectacular to watch because the players, you heard the list of players, they just put on a fabulous show. And then obviously they went out and won a lot too. And one other note about those Olympics in Beijing, that's when Bosh and Wade and James got together and decided what they were going to do in 2010 when LeBron made the decision to leave Cleveland for Miami. It was a decision that was made basically in 2008 that he was going to be together with Bosh and Wade, and it was not going to be in Cleveland. It might not have been in Miami, but the decision to build that group, that super team with LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, that was made at those Olympics. And they wanted to add Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony too. And you'll note that Carmelo Anthony wound up playing with LeBron before his career was over. So that is today in sports history, the Redeem Team winning gold in Beijing. Hey, tell your friends about Cardinal Fastball. It's a 1-hour condensed version of the previous day's Cardinals game, and you can see it every day here on Matrix Midwest at noon and 4 p.m. And we've got quite a week coming up for you here on Matrix Midwest. Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, the MLS replay between Houston and St. Louis. That's a win for St. Louis, spoiler alert. Wednesday, San Antonio Missions at Springfield, Cardinal AA baseball. You can see that here on Matrix Midwest. And then Friday, we've got preseason football. The Bengals are at Philadelphia. That's from CBS Network, because on Channel 4, we're going to have the Cardinals and the Pirates at 7 o'clock. That's on First Alert 4 on Friday night. And of course, we're with you every night at 5 and 10, and you can always hear us. Just download the Matrix Midwest app and you'll be able to listen to us in your car. Just Bluetooth us, and we'd love to have you be part of the show. For our outstanding director, Tyler Klaus, I'm Randy Carricker. Thanks to Tamar Sher for joining us, and thanks to you for joining us. We'll see you next time in the fight. So long, everyone.